Hey Void, how are you doing? So, Phoebe Rizzo is back, still counting through the month, and we were back onto Tubi for today, and, well, I guess in my last couple of videos I mentioned that I didn't have nearly as much to talk about. Well, I guess I should be careful what I wish for. This one's going to be a complicated one to talk about. Complicated to review, and uncomfortable to discuss. Okay, so let's just start. We're going to be talking about the 2010 remake of I Spit on Your Grave. Oh boy. Now, I've seen this one before, and yes, I have seen the original before as well. Admittedly, more than once. Now, the I Spit on Your Grave series, that's another thing. But how did this, a series of rape revenge, turn into a series? I mean, oh boy. But these are films you really should only see one time, because once is enough. Not gonna comment on any artistic licensing therein. I mean, will say they are, to the non-squeamish, worth seeing at least once. But one and done is usually enough for any of the I Spit on Your Grave films. At least the ones I have seen. I've seen the original, I've seen the remake, and I've seen the sequel to the remake. I have not seen the second sequel to the remake, nor the way belated sequel to the original that came out most recently in 2019. Now, there's kind of a jump. The original was back in, was that the 1978? So, whew. Okay. Yes, this is going to be some vile subject matter. But here we go. The randomization god said I was watching it, so I rewatched I Spit on Your Grave. 2010. So, this involves a woman, younger than in the original, who essentially wants to get away from it all so she can focus on her upcoming novel. So she gets a cabin way out in the sticks, and through slightly antagonizing, not really even trying to, due to a awkward encounter with some of the local bad boys, they later get in their head to, well, rape her. That's really it. They flat on, and they do not hesitate to show quite a bit here. So they assault her in her cabin, usually with his threats of violence, including having her fillet a pistol, before she runs away and gets in touch with the sheriff, who encourages her back to the cabin to do a quick investigation, and oh, he's in on it. And then they all proceed to rape her, more than once, violently, before attempting to just dispose of her body, but she essentially throws herself off a bridge into the river, and they think she's gone and dead, though they keep looking for her body to continue covering this up. One month later, she reemerges and systematically finds, finds, and tortures to death each and every one of these guys. Oh boy! And some graphic and inventive deaths. Now, the original was a little bit more graphic in the rape department. I will say that. At least it felt, well, this one felt a bit crueler, I think. But the original had an uncomfortable amount of realism to it, which made it harder to sit through, I think. So, I guess it's well done. but it's not one of those things you want to overly compliment. It's well filmed. And on the flip side, the death scenes are way over the top. I do not recall them being that much in the original, but it's been a while. But they were particularly inventive in this one. I particularly like the guy who had the video camera being forced to watch himself watch his own eyes be pecked out by crows after they've been held open by fishing line and fish hooks. So, yes, seeing those deaths was satisfying because it balances out the horrific things we saw at the beginning. Okay, now, it's weird discussing whether I like this film better than the original because it feels weird saying that you like an I Spit on Your Grave film. It's an uncomfortable thing to say, yeah, it's a good movie, or yes, I like that film. It's best to say it's a intense movie. I will say that, both of them are. I will say the original realism definitely added something to that, but this one's inventive death scenes, I think, make it a bit more satisfying in the payout department. So, it's pick your poison. I honestly don't know which one I would recommend. I don't know if I honestly could recommend an I Spit on Your Grave film, but if this is your sort of thing, they are very well done. Now, this one isn't without its flaws. Notably, this one has some dodgy CG when it comes up. It doesn't come up often, but when a guy's being pecked to death by CG birds, it's a little distracting. I don't believe in the original that the sheriff was in on it, so this one it felt more frustrating that seeing that her almost get away only to be dragged right back into this. And the other one, it was just a bunch of punks who did the deed, which made it feel more realistic when she's, I guess, that there's not this big conspiracy cover-up involved in it. But on the other hand, this one, that does add several layers of complication, as he's married with a daughter, and when she starts systematically going through, she starts messing with them by she sends the family the tape, and and then later shows up visiting his family when he's not around. So it does add a few things there. Now, I do have a problem slightly towards the end. This is probably in the spoiler territory, so if you're worried about being spoiled for this movie, well, that's your problem. When essentially she kidnaps his daughter, though the daughter seems to think she's a new teacher for her, so she has no idea what's actually going on. And then the sheriff is lured out to a spot where he's ambushed and has a shotgun shoved up his ass. Oh, maybe it's more of a rifle, but single barrel. All the same, yes, that actually happens. But it never really shows what happened to the girl after that. Like, it's clear that she went with our heroine, but it sort of ends before it reveals what happened to her. So it kind of goes back into the Resident Evil series, where it just seems to forget about the little girl and just drop her from memory. So, slight issue there, but that's mostly a nitpick. Well, this movie's trying to get a visceral reaction, and yes, it gets it. It's one of those movies that's going to. So I have problems rating this one. Because it's hard to watch. But when she's getting her revenge, it is very satisfying. So it's an experience, I will say that. And so I have to give it a little bit of a bump up in that regard, because it does what it does well. The acting is pretty well done in this film, particularly our heroine, because as much as it may be it might become like a slasher villain towards the end of it. She's avenging herself, and you can't fault her for anything she's really doing to these guys. They definitely are getting what's coming to them. So, feels weird to give this one a higher bump up, but it's well made. It does get a disturbing reaction, which it's a horror film, so it's trying to. And it definitely is not a forgettable film. So I'm probably going to put this one up into the 4 MacGuffin camp, right at the bottom of it. Because it just hedges up into there just from, I guess, quality of what it's doing. Even if the subject matter is particularly uncomfortable. So, that said, I don't recommend people see this film unless you know exactly what you're in for and are ready for that. Because this film does not pull its punches. Neither the original nor this one shies away from what it is. And that's a rape revenge film. And it will show the rape. It will show, and, well, she was assaulted more than once, so it shows the rapes, plural, I should say. So, you have to be ready for that. And and it is rather intense on how they goes about it. Apparently, they actually gave the actress a safe word to pretty much end the scenes if she felt like she was being, if it got too intense for her, which she soldiered on through it, and wow. So, I don't know. For MacGuffins, I will say that for it. It definitely provokes a reaction, and the kills are really creative. I mean, all of them really are. At first, there was one that looked like it was just going to be a simple strangulation, but it comes back later to be a bit more involved than that. Although I will say the constant show horse and pony stallion references is a little weird, especially since they keep up. But I think that's just kind of the vibe they're going for being odd and uncomfortable, because it does make those scenes even more uncomfortable. It's a good job. You did it. Well, you should have done it, I don't know, but. So, I Spit on Your Grave. The remake does hold up pretty well to the original. I will say that. And I won't say it's a good movie, but I will say it's an effective one. So, make of that what you will. So, 4 MacGuffins. And I feel dirty even saying that, so there we are. Okay, well, on that, I'm gonna go take a shower and wash this movie out of my system and get ready for tomorrow when we're back on Shudder. Well, have a good night.